Musgraves, Pressure Washing Institute, Contractors First. I'm here again on Tech Tuesday on Wednesday with Jerry McMillen from Scirocco Bulldog Systems, guys. Hey, I'm giving away a couple of these Elite shirts. I'm going to give 5 of them away. Now, these are, guys, these never been given away before. They are Pressure Washing Institute Elite. They don't have any advertisement on them, guys. Nothing. They are just Pressure Washing Institute shirts, front and back. They're the Elite shirts. They're basically limited edition shirts. If you guys want to win one today, all you got to do is simply ask a question. Jerry, introduce yourself again and tell us what you're going to talk about. We're going to do a little extended thing, but let all the crowd know what's going on.
Well, I've been alongside of being a custom system manufacturer for coming up on 40 years and being a machine guy since I was like 8. I've also been running a service center very meticulously side by side with all this because, number one, I'm addicted to troubleshooting. I like making machines last a long time, and I want to know how they fail. So every time there's a machine in our service department, I want to know exactly how it failed and whether we were able to make it better than it was before. And I have a few examples with me right here now. So we're going to talk about what the average pressure washer is and why it's average and what we can do about it, because y'all deserve long-term low cost, and bean counters and chemical salesmen don't really have an interest in that. They want to feed you to a service center.
Let me know. You want me to break for questions, Jerry, or what do you want to do? You got some questions already.
Okay, let's see what kind of questions they have before we get started.
He's asking about your situation in California on the engines. What have we figured that out yet?
Engines are a very hit and miss, except if you want a Honda, they're not going to happen here. I believe what happened even with the small Honda engines is they got kicked out of California because they didn't meet CARB specifications for too many years, and just paying the fines wasn't good enough. Otherwise, to answer your now question about engines, is they're very sporadically available. I'm grabbing engines from wherever I can get them from. I happen to have an okay inventory of engines right now. I've got some small, medium, and large. The smaller ones are easier to get than the large ones.
Are you using the GSXs?
If I got some, I would make them available. They're not my favorite engine because they're not the most reliable engine right now. They're failing.
Okay. So you've had some troubles. You've seen it in the service center already.
I see it in the service center. That's what I want to tell you. You know, okay. If they're not breaking, they're not breaking. If they are breaking, I'm telling you they're breaking, and I'll tell you how they break. You know, but
you're not in love with Honda, right? I mean, they just aren't. They haven't been making the engines like they used to, right? I mean, isn't that really the case?
They're just not doing it. You know, with a nylon cam gear, what happens the first time it backfires the wrong way is it kicks all the teeth off the gear, and your engine just got destroyed. That's why we don't have nylon cam gears on automotive engines anymore. There were a few engines back in the 70s, I guess. There was a few engines that came out that had nylon teeth rings around the cam gears. Big mistake. First time the engine backfired, kicks all the teeth off, done. Wasted engine. So they don't do that anymore.
That's what happened to that Honda the other night. That's exactly what happened to it. You know what I did? I put starter fluid in it because it hadn't been run forever, but it only had about 40 hours on it.
Ooh.
I destroyed it.
Yeah, you did. Never, ever use starting fluid for a gasoline engine. That is for diesel engines, not gasoline engines. And if you've ever done it before, the knocking is horrible. It sounds like it's going to explode anyway. Don't do that. On a diesel engine, they knock all the time. They're used to that.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to be able to tell from all the burned plastic on top of the motor that I use starter fluid.
So, you know, but the way to use.
Hey, Jerry, you know what? I'm not the tech guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm not that guy. You know, so I learned something tonight. I'll use gasoline to start an engine when I know I got a
Oh,
problem.
no. Hang on.
Okay. No.
Random filling this. So
So
here's what you do. You use that carburetor cleaner like I showed you 2 weeks ago.
Okay. So carb
Carburetor
cleaner
aerosol.
or anything with that type of, you said it. What has it got in it?
Flammable aerosol.
I could have used the old school hairspray like the old man used to use, right?
Well, that's sticky.
When the old lady got done doing this and putting the bouffant hair up, then
I'm not sure you want.
The old man would just take the hairspray and use a starter fluid. Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think you want your choke lever to get all sticky with hairspray, so probably not a good idea. Stick with carburetor cleaner, brake parts cleaner, even liquid wrench aerosol. It's flammable and combustible, and bug spray. It's going to smell funny.
Absolutely.
All right. Anyway, so engines, some of them are available, some of them are not. Let's talk about pumps. We're on a mission here. So anyway, so to let get started, the new guys are my most important people right now. I got to rescue some guys right now. Okay. Last week we talked about the all-in-one pumps where the unloader is actually built into the head of the pump, and it's why throw away a whole pump when all you needed was an unloader. That's if everything went right for the full life of an unloader. Okay. But they overheat and bypass too easily because there's only a few ounces of water bypassing. That's a bad idea. That's a poor design. But hey, it sells a lot of pumps and it feeds you to a service center. Ooh, but wait, you thought you were going to save some money buying a Home Depot machine. Okay, let's get back to that. If you're going to buy an economy version pump system, look for one that has a bolt-on unloader. See the bolts? See the unloader? It's bolted on. It's not molded into the head of the pump. It's bolted on. This also is a 2-piece unloader. I can take these bolts out and I can split the unloader so it's in 2 pieces. Well, the top piece is just the right size to slip on a 5/8 hose and clamp it. Okay, so you flip it so that the hose barb is facing back. That puts the outlet facing up, but you can put a 90-degree elbow so it's facing any direction you want to. So that solves the high pressure side. Now you have an external bypass line. So you can either thread the bottom piece with 3/8 threads, put a hose barb in it, flip it so it's facing down with a 90-degree elbow and it facing back. Now you can have this big bypass line back here. Oh, kind of like this, so that you have an external bypass line. But that's if it's in good shape. You haven't overheated and bypassed yet.
I have a question.
See.
So you've got a temp laser, right? Have you, like, after 1 minute of bypassing, have you checked the temperature on one that doesn't have the hose and one that does have the hose? And did you find out, do you know what the difference is, or you've never done that?
After I put my hand on the head of the pump after 2 minutes and I wanted to pull my hand back, I didn't go running for an exact temperature.
Okay. But maybe we should.
Maybe that would be
a cool. Maybe that would be a cool. It would be a cool thing. And I know because you're the real technician. Obviously that's how you know the head's hot, right? When you singe your skin and it burns, and you're alive at that point. You know what I mean? You're still alive. But no, I mean, I'm just curious because, like, in the relative of that, because, like, we can give real measurements. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And I mean, I know it works because it's common science sense right there, right? I mean, there's more water, so the water is going to stay cooler longer. I'm just curious because one of the reasons why this is a great tip, Jerry, is I would lock guns down. OSHA regulations, we'd use a trigger gun for safety, but it was always stupid because you're locking the gun down, because if you're a contract cleaner and you're hitting that gun, constantly all night long, you are tearing equipment up. I mean, not just the unloader, but the pump itself, everything is done.
Yeah, the hardest working component in the system is the unloader. And every time you ping that unloader, you're stressing the unloader. And there's a spike pressure when you let go of the gun before it gets into bypass.
Tell us, people don't believe that spike pressure. It's a 3-to-1 ratio, isn't it?
If it's adjusted correctly on, let's use the 4,000 PSI machine as an example. If it's adjusted correctly, your spike pressure is only going to be about 200 PSI over the working pressure. But over the next year, not touching it, that spike pressure could wander all the way up to 600 PSI or 700 PSI. When it hits about 800 PSI, oh yeah, you're almost at 5,000 PSI. You want your whole system going through a 5,000 PSI orgasm every time you let go of the gun just because you haven't had checked the unloader lately? Wow.
And how many times a night do you hit that? It's stressing the hoses. It's stressing the machine. I mean, I would watch trailers just go like this. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
just,
Every time a hose
got
comes in for repair, we always ask the customer, what's the spike pressure on your unloader? And of course, they'll look at us and go, what does that mean? And then we explain, and they're like, yeah, my machine's a few years old and I haven't really touched it. Well, then let's get a gauge on it and check it real quick.
Tom's got a couple. And
Jerry,
when you talk about gauges, you're the gauge guy. You got a gauge on the pressure. You got a gauge on the temperature. You got gauges. Everything you build's got gauges on it. So I was shocked when you didn't when you didn't tell me that you measured the temperature only with your hand. I mean, I'm shocked at that because you know you call it the bullshit. You call it the bullshit meter. I mean,
right.
and it's true because I'll testify that Jerry's machines. There's a lot of equipment sold. First of all, there's a lot of people that sell equipment at 5.5, call them 6s. Okay. They tell you that they'll do 180 degrees in temps and they don't. Right. They run realistically, the average hot water machine, I'm just here to tell you guys, runs at about 160 degrees. That's all. And it can't run any hotter than that. But manufacturers will tell you it'll be 200 degrees and it's not. Jerry's equipment it'll go higher than 200 degrees, but it can run consistently at 190, which I don't think people, you always say this, Jerry, and when I never, it didn't really compute with me, but I'm the guy that never used a lot of chemicals. And you say this, heat is an underrated cleaning tool, right? I mean, because there's nothing you can't clean with heat and pressure.
Now, Ron, you just changed the subject from what we're feeding the water with to what we're getting out of the heater. So
I know,
let these guys get mixed up. Let me take this from here for just a minute.
Dude, answer this question though, Jerry. Answer that one real quick. We'll get that one out of the way.
Which one?
Right there. How often do you change the unloader, Jerry? I guarantee you that's going to be an analytical answer, but go ahead and answer it. As often as it needs changed?
If it works, don't fix it. All right. But now let's properly answer that question. Okay. So what happens to an unloader is they get sticky, and that pressure, that spike pressure goes up, and you're working. Your spike pressure might go up 200 psi for every 100 psi that the pressure drops. So you may not notice a drop in pressure, but when you let go of the gun, the hose is going through a freaking orgasm just for the unloader to get into bypass. Okay. So a gauge on the head of the pump so you can see what the pump is doing when it goes into bypass, because that spike pressure, see your working pressure at the pump may be set perfectly at 4,000 psi, and the spike pressure when you let go of the gun could be wandering up 2, 3, 4, 500 psi, which you don't want to happen. But you also have another pressure spike that happens with you guys that have really long hoses. And that water weight is traveling at how many miles an hour out there towards the end of your gun, and you let go of the gun and it's just supposed to stop motion. Well, guess what? The trigger gun, if you were to have a gauge on your on the hose right there before your gun, even though the spike pressure at the pump might only be a couple hundred psi working like perfect, you might have a 600 psi spike out there at the doggone gun. So this is another reason that hoses blow. Now, what do you do about it? I've had systems that everything worked perfect, but there just was a lot of spike pressure out of the poor guy's trigger gun, and I didn't like seeing the hose reel jump and the hoses, going through all that. So we literally put a regulating relief valve on the hose reel set for maybe 500 psi over the working pressure. So even though the unloader went into bypass back at the pump at a couple hundred psi over, the spike pressure is being lopped off at the hose reel by the regulating relief. So any of that extra spike that tries to bounce back against the regulator, it just relieves it, and a little spurt of water hits the ground. Big deal. That's one way to do it.
It's the way to do it, right?
Yeah. Haven't had to do that on very many systems, but it is doable. Let's get back to the unloader valve. So as your spike pressure is going up, you're going to make a decision. I mean, you may have only lost 300, 400 PSI. Maybe we're down to 30, 34, 3,500 PSI, and it's still a functional system for you cheapskates, not really giving you what you bought. But wait a minute, the spike pressure is hitting freaking 4,800 PSI now, and you're about to blow the hose or throw a rod out the side of your pump. Okay, that's bad. Just get it off of there, get over it, put a new $89, $69, whatever unloader on it, and move on, and get it adjusted correctly. One of the things that I put on my make available to my customers is if I sell an unloader in a box, send it out of here in a box, or I hand it over at the sales counter right here, I'm going to give that customer a set of operating instructions. I'm going to look them in the eyes and I'm going to say, do you have a pressure gauge? If you don't have a pressure gauge, you have no idea what you're doing. You can't set the unloader if you don't have a gauge. You need a gauge. Do you need a gauge now, or do you already have a gauge? And they sign for those documents that they had. I handed them the instructions so that I'm not on the hook if they put on an unloader and they blow a hose that squirts their eye out or something stupid. Okay, we don't need injuries, we don't need mishaps. I don't like failures at all. I don't want anything but long-term low cost. I like customers that can give me referrals, so I don't want you to die. These are important things. Okay, so let's go back to this for just a second. We were talking about portable machines and how inexpensive but expensive they can be. Okay, if we do a high volume bypass line like this, okay, sometimes I get somebody saying, well, why doesn't he use a better quality hose than a nylon braid hose? I could put jackhammer hose on here and you would never know that it was ever overheated. I'm expecting to see a machine that I sell, or I'm expecting you to take care of your machine and watch your machine and listen to this. This nylon braid hose changes the inside liner changes color. It turns white at almost exactly 140 degrees. Now we know that your guys have been laying the gun down, BSing on the cell phone for 5, 10, 15 minutes instead of keeping the gun open, but it didn't blow a hose. Everything's still fine. The thermal relief valve opened up at 145 degrees and cooled everything down. No big deal, because it took a long time for it to heat up in bypass. But we have an indicator, a truth indicator is one of my gauges. It's the inside of this hose. If you're going to run, excuse me, if you're going to run 140, 160 degree water into it from your water heater because you want to clean your garage at home with just a cold water machine, whatever, then we will put a jackhammer hose on here so you can run your hot water. But that's if you're taking good care of your machine. We don't want to use the nylon braid for going over 140 degrees intentionally. But I actually had one of these, have one of these at my home. I've got a 5 horsepower electric motor pressure washer sitting right next to my water heater. I can open the cabinet, flip on the switch, pull out hose, and rinse with hot water right out of my water heater. And it has a nylon braid hose, and it just barely has turned white in like 4 years. It's been there, barely. Okay, and I've never put an unloader or a set of seals on it in 4 years. But I'm not a pressure washer full time. I bring it out a couple times a week and I rinse something off, like my patio or a couple of the vehicles, whatever. Okay, but anyway, that's why we use nylon braid. It's an indicator. Plus, I want to see if there's air bubbles in the line. On a tank fed system.
Got a question, Jerry.
Yes.
Will that head pressure crack the brass head?
Head pressure? You mean the spike pressures?
Yeah.
That was an intelligent question. I've never seen a spike pressure actually damage a head. If there was a fitting that was over tightened, I've seen a little bit of extra pressure finish off what the over tightened fitting started. So a crack in the edge where the fitting was screwed in. I've seen that happen. Um, but usually, if there's a massive spike pressure in the pump, the cage on a valve will collapse and it'll blast a hole across an O-ring underneath your check valve. That we've seen many times. Blasted cages on check valves. Now,
Tom wants to know how much your non-collapsible hose is running right now. And I assume that he's talking half-inch. Assume. I use 1 inch.
Non-collapsible. Are we talking
your
about
jackhammer hose? Your jackhammer hose.
Oh, the bypass
he wants to
hose?
put the jackhammer hose on. So
Well, first of all, this is 5/8 on a little 3.5 gallon a minute system. If we're going to do a 5, 6, or 8 gallon a minute machine, it's going to have 3/4 inch hose, and that hose is going to be at least 6 feet long. So if you're going to pressure feed with a water hose, that big of a pump system, we're going to use 3/4 inch jackhammer hose. If you're not already using air water hose, rubber water hose from the local masonry contractor, like a White Cap wholesaler or one of those with really good quality water hose, get over it. Get over it.
Pete's got a dumb question, but I'm going to beat him up a little bit. He says, "What if you go over 140 degrees? What will happen?"
With this or with jackhammer?
If you go over 140 degrees, I know what's going to happen. The thermal relief valve is going to pop, and it's going to cool the pump down.
Yes,
Yeah,
but there's also a 165 degree version thermal relief valve available. Cat Pumps makes one, and I think General still makes one as well. But there's your 165 degree relief, and with the high volume bypass, that actually works really nicely. But you're not going to see over 135 degrees on a residential water heater. It's only going to be a commercial water heater in a restaurant that goes over 135. There's that.
And I learned how I destroyed a motor today.
And you learned how to destroy a motor, right? So
I destroyed it. It's gone. I just hope Honda warranties it. I'll have to put a new head. I'll have to put those new plastic pieces on before I go.
Okay. So this is the thermal relief valve, high volume bypass on a pressure fed system. This is how it's done. All the repairs that we do in our service department that are pressure fed systems end up leaving here with a high volume bypass upgrade. It's a piece of hose and some fittings. Oh my God. But it's not.
I have a question. That's an AR pump, right?
Yep.
Where does the glass, where do you fill up the oil to on that glass right there? Where does it need to be reading?
Well,
where do you suggest?
That's a good
question. And do you ever change your pump oil, or you just add to it?
Because I make pumps live a long time, you better change the frickin' oil once in a while. What's wrong with you?
What do you think? How often?
On a direct drive system, which is the hardest working pump in the industry, these things are turning at 3,600 RPMs. So you'd better change it every other time you change the motor oil. Okay? Every other time, give it a break and use high grade.
And in the glass there, show us where the level needs to be, because we always overfill these things, man. And it's a mess.
Okay.
So where do you?
Let's talk about that. So the middle of the sight glass is the high level, okay? And anything lower is not enough. It should be in the middle of the sight glass. On this one, there's little points, and the little points are just a little bit below the level, the middle level. I don't like that. Every pump that leaves here, including this one, is going to have a little bit more oil in it added, and it's going to be a high grade 90 W140 weight oil. Because these things get hot. It's not 90 degrees outside. It's going to be a freaking 100.
Tom says he changes his every 50 hours. I'm just going to tell everybody the truth. I'm not going to lie to anybody. I never change the oil.
Well, you're also goofy, so there's that.
I never change the oil, man. I change the oil in the engines, but I just don't change the oil in the pumps ever. I just add to it. But I'll tell you the tip, and you need to give them this tip. I need to get a picture of it. You need to tell them about the oil that you use that you turned me on to, because there's two things you turned me on to that I know have improved: the oil and the battery. And we talked about the battery in the last video. So listen about Jerry's battery in the last video, because it really, I need to go down to that battery company and get a video of that battery company and how they explained it. It made perfect sense. There you go. You got it right there.
All right. I'm going to
piss off types of oil.
I'm going to piss off a couple of manufacturers right now, because I'm going to tell you the real deal. Okay. These things get hot. These pumps get hot. You're abusing the hell out of a pump running at 3,600 RPMs. I don't care who you are. All right. It's just, they were never designed to do that. They were put on because it was an experiment to see if it would work. Giant came out with the first direct drive pumps, and they worked pretty doggone good. They had the unloader built into the head, which basically made them stop pushing those pumps. Okay. So they went to an external bypass on a larger version of a direct drive pump. But everybody else picked up the ball and, oh yeah, we can make a cheap pump. You know, we can make it direct drive. But they're working their little asses off. Okay. Now, let me explain something to you. 30 weight, which is what is marked on a lot of these pumps, relates to compressor oil or tractor transmission oil. It doesn't relate to motor oil. 30 weight motor oil is much thinner than 30 weight air compressor or tractor transmission oil. Okay, AW30 tractor oil. Okay, but if you look,
so straight 30 weight oil is BS. Don't use it. It's tearing up your pump. It's tearing up your pump because it's thinner.
All right.
Okay.
So let me.
What is this? What is this you're going to show?
Let me finish. So so if you look at a chart of viscosity chart showing each column for each of the different types of oil, gear oil, motor oil, and all that, okay, you'll find that gear oil, equivalent to the AW30 tractor transmission oil, is 90 weight. Okay, so if it's wintertime and you're not in the desert in 110 degree, in Texas, okay, it's wintertime and it's not getting that hot, then use the 75W90 weight. And from Walmart, that's right, this is right from Walmart. I'm not telling you to buy expensive oil. I'm just telling you to buy the right oil. This is full synthetic and it's like 10 bucks. Get over it. It's a quart for 10 bucks. It's the right stuff. Give it a chance. Okay. And and right now in the desert, you got to be using the 85W140. Walmart, 10 bucks. Get over it. It's the right thing to do.
Makes a difference, guys. Really does. Makes a huge difference.
Okay.
Huge difference.
You don't have to buy.
What are you running in the motors too, Jerry? Just, I know you're not talking about motors today, but what are you running in the motors? Same?
Okay, another good question side by side of all this. If you look at the engine chart, especially Kohler finally came out with the truth. Kohler is the most honest manufacturer about what oils to use right now. If you look at one of their charts, it says if it's going to be up to 90 degrees outside, only 90 degrees, not inside of an enclosure, not in that enclosed trailer, okay, but 90 degrees outside in the open wind, then you need to be using 1040. Think about that. Okay. If you're in 100 degrees or it's inside that enclosed trailer at 100 and whatever degrees in the desert in freaking Texas right now, y'all should be using full synthetic. It's the right thing to do. Just telling you.
Do you mind if these links are on your website? Are these recommendations on your website somewhere? I mean, is there anywhere that these guys can access this information?
I'm pretty sure there's a document on my website. I will.
Let's get the link in the video. Yeah, let's get it in here.
I will get it in there. Okay.
That way they can get to your go to the website.
Yep.
Run that oil gear and the belt drive pumps as well. Run that oil gear drive and belt drive pumps as well. So he's asking both, either or.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
It doesn't make it. They're probably better with the gear drive. I mean, but why wouldn't you protect your belt
And
drive as well. I mean, you use the same stuff.
And always use the 85-140 in the gearbox.
I got my first gear drive pressure washer that I've had in 20 years. I got a gear drive that F&A sent me, and I'm supposed to run it like until it breaks. So
okay, listen, this is something really important for you gear reduction.
So I'll just put regular motor oil in there, and it'll break in a couple of days.
Right. Yeah. Here's a we're talking about oil levels. Okay, let's talk about that gearbox. First of all, you definitely want to be using 140. Okay, and so that you can fill it up to the middle of the sight glass where you're supposed to, there's a little extension nipple that we put into the we take out the dipstick breather and put in a little extension nipple with a 90-degree hose barb, a little 1/4 inch 90-degree hose barb to be the breather. And by extending it up, you can put that oil level in the middle without it spewing out, by giving it a little bit of an extension. It works really good. And by the way, I have all of this stuff in stock. I have all of these things because we do it every day in our.
Have you ever seen anybody put like a transparent head on the pump just so they could see the pump working and how the fluid's moving in there? I watched a cool thing on a differential cover. I don't know if you ever watched that video, but a guy that builds differential covers, he explained why his differential cover works better than what the automotive industry has been using for 100 years. Because you know how we talk about this all the time, Jerry. Like our industry, even they just got a waterproof generator. What year was it? 2012 or something like that. We've been using generators that weren't waterproof for 50 years.
Right.
Why did it take 50 years?
You trying to make sense out of people that don't make sense today?
Well, it was when I made that speech at CETA that I've been using the same technology for 25 years. All of a sudden, and I keep telling, I remember saying that, and the float tank would run over, and a drop of water would hit on the generator, blow out the magnetos in the generator. Just a drop of water. And I always thought that was the dumbest thing that in the world. Here we are running equipment that's conducive to water, and we got a generator that was so fragile. You remember the old generator, the old Winco's. They were so fragile. You got a little bit of water in that area right there where the brushes were at. Boop, that generator was gone.
Gone. When we mount a generator on a truck or a trailer, and it has obviously it has an electrical control panel on it, and especially if it's facing forward so that rain would be driving into it as you're driving down the street, we take a piece of clear plastic from Home Depot, carpet runner plastic. We cut a piece of carpet runner plastic and we screw it into the top and drape it down long enough that it hangs down and stays down, and you just lift it up when you're going to do something to it and let it lay down if it might rain. Or water sprays on it. Go figure. A little rain cover helps.
See, that's some advanced technology there.
Right. All right. So back to pumps. Okay. So, and by the way,
I just love abusing pumps, Jerry.
Well, I know that. So,
I just like to see them. I just, you know what? Next time I come on, I'm going to bring some cracked ones in here where the head just blew out the end of the pump. Probably because I don't change the oil.
Before I move away from the pressure fed pumps, I want you to notice the compression swivel that we use right here. It takes 5 minutes to change the unloader and adjust it and back to work if you've got a compression swivel between here. To make sure that you can reuse the compression swivel, put a little anti-seize compound in it. It's your best friend. Okay? That's what this is for. Now, if we're putting on a larger unloader, like on this monster over here, where the unloader is bigger and heavier, or you're using something like a K7 unloader, that's a lot heavier. So instead of just a pipe threaded compression swivel, we'll use the flare fitting version of this, which has a much beefier neck and it can support the weight no problem. Even if you're mounting the unloader on a mounting block away from the pump, still using a compression swivel or the flare version of the compression swivel really helps with our favorite phrase, the rapid elimination of downtime. Okay. So let's talk about tank fed pumps, which is the rest of you guys. I'm going to put this away for the minute. Okay. Now we're going to look at tank fed systems. When you're pressure feeding, it's easy to get water into the pump. And when you take out the seals, when they get worn and you're replacing them, you always look at them, and pay attention to which one they come out. Okay. Where the water supply is right here. Okay. If there's been any cavitation or any water starvation at all, then the seals in plunger number 1 are going to be more likely to be okay. It's the ones farthest away they're going to be the most damaged. And you can lay them right out in front of you and see that the one farthest away is the one that has the little nibble marks in it. We call them rat bites. It looks like a mouse was in there nibbling on the doggone thing. Okay. If they're brown and it looks like the rubber was rubbed away, then somebody forgot to turn the damn water on and scorched the freaking rubber right off the seals, and that's why they leaked all over the place. Okay. And by the way, if you forgot to turn the water on and you got all the way back over here 100 feet from the supply to the machine, and you go, oh my God, I got to turn the water on, turn the machine off. Let it cool down, because if you go turn that water back on and you open the gun and you put a rush of cold water in the face of those scorched plungers, they'll crack. And those are $50 a piece on a lot of machines. So you probably don't want to do that. We do a lot of plungers.
How hot is the water? How hot is the water at a restaurant?
Water supply from a restaurant can be easily 160 degrees, easily.
Yeah, I burned up a lot of pumps at restaurants hooking up to the mop sink.
Yeah, well, that'll happen. But if you've got a high volume bypass line, by the way, those little AR630 pump systems that a lot of guys like for doing restaurants because they can run hot water through them. Okay, when we sell those, we bring them in here. We split the unloader. We talked about splitting that bolt-on unloader. We split the unloader, put a high volume bypass line on it, the rubber hose, not the nylon braid, because we're going to let the guy use hot water. Okay, and it extends the life of those seals noticeably. It works really well. And by the way, the total shutoff version pumps, the components that they use for a total shutoff, the instant off, instant on with the trigger gun, those components are so unreliable. Why go there? You're going to have downtime even more often if you're trying to make the pump live longer by using dumb controls that don't work very well. If you want to do that kind of stuff, call me. There's a different way of doing it, and it works a lot better. But anyway, so the point before I deviated was about making the water seals live a long time. Okay, and noticing whether those seals are scorched will tell you whether your employees have run it without water or not. Looking for the little pock marks tells you whether there was an air leak someplace, or whether they were running with too long a water hose to supply and it was sucking air bubbles and cavitating because of the limited water supply. So
anything you want to tell people about? Tom's got a question about, in the wintertime, running your pumps. Is there any specific things they need to be warned about in the wintertime? I mean, obviously freezing is not going to be good for your pump, but like
they don't like freezing.
If they're running in the wintertime, what do you want to do? Like, is there any special things? I mean,
Well, I already told you, use the 85-90 oil, and
so a thinner oil in colder weather.
Do everything.
Heavier oil in hotter weather.
Yeah, do everything you can to protect them from freezing. Antifreeze is best, and paying attention. Don't lose track.
Pete says don't use the hot water at the restaurants. Pete, I only want to just see if the pump can handle it. That's the only reason I do that. I just want to test it. Remember, I'm hard on pumps.
Here's another thing. Okay, everything you guys do is a race against time. Every time you open the gun, you need the best performance you can get. And every time something goes down, you need the rapid elimination of downtime. If you're running in freezing weather and you don't have every fitting you might need in case of an emergency, what, do you want to drive all the way home because you couldn't finish a job? Bring fittings.
Another question, man. They want your opinion on these remote systems.
Remote
I mean, they
control.
want your opinion, not mine. I love remote systems, but I don't know if you like remote systems or not.
Well, a little known fact is with all this mechanical engineering experience I have from the time I was a little kid, and everything else, what a little known fact is my formal education is electrical engineering. I know all kinds of stuff about electrical stuff. I built my first remote control like almost 40 years ago, but I didn't like the range. And just a few years later, all of a sudden people started coming out with, oh, I got the greatest thing. And it had a shitty range. I didn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. I let them go make a bad name for themselves because they didn't have a very good range. And anything that really had a good range was crazy expensive and not really worth the difference. I'd rather have you paying attention, close attention to what's really happening with your machine. Walk back to that machine every hour or two and pay attention to what it's doing. And if that means, when you want to take a break, you're shutting the machine off manually, go shut the machine off manually and make sure there's no leaking from underneath the head or there's no oil spewing out from underneath your engine. You should be at one with your machine, not at a distance. A lot of you guys are single operators. You don't have a backup guy watching the equipment back to the trailer. That's a 3-man system. When there's 2 guys cleaning, 1 guy's watching everything to make sure that everybody's working easily and so on. You know about that. I'm not a cleaner.
I need pressure washing equipment insurance. That's what I need.
Buy from me and you get the tech.
I need some insurance. When I destroy it, I just want to bring it back and get a new one.
I like that. We're gonna work on that. Okay.
That Tom said, well said, Jerry.
Appreciate that. So let's get to your tank fed systems. All right. This is an 8-gallon a minute pump. Some versions of it are rated all the way up to 12 gallons a minute. There's even one with a bigger head that's rated for 18 gallons a minute.
Okay. Oh, I like this. You can show them how they can hook direct to this too, right?
Right.
Is that
and
that's cool.
And I have kits. I have a kit. Okay. If you want them, I've got kits. So, ping me personally and we'll talk about what combination you need. But I have a kit.
I want a kit for hooking 12-volt burners up, man. That's what I need.
I have those too, right?
I need
so
it.
Anyway, the point in this example is the most common combination that we sell on the larger size pumps is a full 8.0 gallons a minute at a full 4,000 PSI. This is a special order pump that AR makes for us with bronze rods. It's rated for the full 4,000 PSI, no problem. It's got the big check valves, bigger than the general pump has. It's got the beefy seals that are less expensive than general. It's got the beefier rods. It weighs a lot because it's built beefy, and we're having no issues with these things long term.
Veronica said hi, Jerry. I don't know if you remember Veronica or not. You remember Veronica in Houston? Houston.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Her and her husband, they're out of Houston.
Pete
says he wants you to build him a machine. He has 100,000.
Well, I can build several machines for that. So
there you go.
I'm not greedy. I want to do a great job, or you can put me on your Christmas list if you have something extra for me.
I'll give you his number, Jerry. I got Pete's number in my phone, so I'll send it to you right now. You can give him a call.
We have built $100,000 systems, but it was with multiple users.
Pete's the real deal.
Multiple users, filtration for reuse, fancy fuel.
Pete should have bought a house out here, but he didn't do it. He's kicking himself.
Right. The $100,000 truck, the Desert Heat truck, was less than $100,000, and look at all we did on that one. He even got fancy panels, soundproofing panels on the side of that truck. Anyway, back to the task at hand. Okay. Every one of these fittings was chosen for flow dynamics. Okay. I'm going to pull this off for a second. Now, everything in a plumbing system is a flow restriction until proven otherwise. Okay? Proven otherwise. You look at that fitting and you evaluate sharp edges, restricted thoroughfares. I've seen steel fittings on the inlet of a pump. Now, we don't do that for two reasons. On the inlet of the pump, I don't want anything to corrode. I don't want to feed the pump with rust. That's dumb. Plus, the steel is thicker, which means the inlet thoroughfare is smaller. This is a nice little thin piece of cheap brass. It won't rust. And look how big the thoroughfare is because the wall is so thin. This is a better combination than the brass 90-degree version of this. This is a 1-inch hose barb with 3/4-inch threads. I was looking at it earlier, and the hose barb itself on the brand that we buy happens to be very thin, but and the back end is almost as big as this. A pretty good fitting. But I was looking at the way they're manufacturing now, and when they drilled this way and then they drilled that way, they stopped and it created a ledge in between, and that ledge is going to be it's going to interrupt the flow of the water.
I just use steel. That way they rust, and then the rust goes into the pump, and then we see how tough we can see how tough the pump is.
Why put debris in the check valves when you need the check valves to hold pressure? Okay. Now,
wait a minute. Jerry's a good guy and knows his business. Your money will be well spent with Jerry, whatever you have him build. Right. I love his brain. There you go, man.
Appreciate that. So,
they're asking you where you get that stuff from. Jerry's got all that stuff.
Just get it from me. I'll save you hours of research. Why do you want to spend hours of research when you're paying the technical guy a couple of bucks to do a good job for you, and you get the tech talk in between?
I love your kits, Jerry. We need to talk about we need to get the surface cleaner out next week or something and talk about it, man. Because I'll just get mine out. We can get them both out. I can show people how I trash all the equipment. It'll be a fun time. We'll do the vacuum cleaners after that. I've got a vacuum that I bought from Jerry, man, probably 12, 13 years ago. That thing still sucks. It still sucks. Yeah.
Sucks them right up through some long hoses. So back to the pump. All right. So the example of the moment is 8 gallons a minute. Okay. This is a special hose barb tee. And by the way, by using a hose barb tee instead of a regular tee with a bunch of fittings in it, I'm minimizing the possibility of a leak. Plus, this is less expensive. Do you want to overspend? I mean, like I said, put me on your Christmas list if you got extra money. The tech guy doesn't make a lot of money. I don't go out and clean for $200 an hour. I'm hoping to make a few bucks on some fittings. So, let me do a good job for you with the right fittings that are going to work real well. And you'll have fewer fittings to leak. And I like clear nylon braid hose because you can see air bubbles. We want to know if there's one air bubble per minute. If there's one air bubble all month long, that's pock marks on those water seals. Every time it collapses that, it implodes that air bubble into nothing. It makes a pock mark on a water seal. Take the water seals out of a pump that gave you a decent lifespan, and you're going to see some doggone pock marks. Let me tell you, it's an erosion that looks like a rat was chewing on the doggone thing. It's pretty impressive. So 8 gallons a minute from me has 1 inch going right into each side of the head, 1 1/4 inch to the filter. And if you're going more than 3 or 4 feet to the water tank, I want this side to be 1.5 inches. Yeah, 1.5 inches all the way to the filter, and then splitting down. The bigger the hoses, the less turbulence that can cause cavitation bubbles. Those cavitation bubbles are what kill your water seals long term, and the unloader. The unloader doesn't like those cavitation bubbles either.
Tell these guys about that Y strainer that I believe that I used before anybody ever used it.
The Banjo Big Bull water filter comes with a plug in the end. As you can see here, I like to take it off, put a ball valve and a garden hose fitting. Where'd my garden hose fitting go?
There is no more chasing that filter cap or breaking it. Show them how easy it is to clean their filter screen. Go ahead, Jerry. Show them. Demonstration.
Well,
No. That's it. That's as easy as show it to them.
you open
You
the valve.
turn that. It's cleaned. It's
It
clean,
flushes the
guys.
screen out.
It's unbelievable. And then he's trying to tell you that if you want to hook the pump direct, there's a garden hose adapter on the end of that he's missing.
Yes.
And it's the most genius thing because there are a lot of bulletproofing steps when your pump's having issues. And if you can get rid of the tank and get it direct, you can nail down what the problems are. Right, Jerry?
Let me take it from there for a minute. So let's paint that picture. So you've got a ball valve on the water tank that shuts off the flow, and you can open this up and connect your garden hose right here. Now you can pressure feed the system and check for leaks. You should probably do that once in a while. Every system that we install has a garden hose fitting and the proper shutoffs so that we can pressure feed this, so we can pressure test the system.
Genius.
Plus, if you're doing a quick demo and you don't want to put 100 gallons of water in your water tank, just pressure feed it for a minute. Do that quick demo, whatever. Also, one more thing. On these great big feed lines, if your water level's getting low in the tank, it's less likely to suck a bubble that's going to cause a problem in the pump as the water level goes down. With bigger fittings, it's less likely to actually suck the tornado and get those bubbles moving in there. So less turbulence is good, and being able to pressure feed is good. And by the way, if you got one of my machines or it's set up like this and you call me up, at 10 o'clock my time, which is 1 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast, oh my God, my machine doesn't work right. What do I do? I'm going to ask you, can you pressure feed it with a garden hose and see if there's any leaks? Because if you can fix a quick leak and get back to work, get back to work. If you can't pressure feed it, oh, I'm sorry. What if all the rest of the troubleshooting we do is for nothing and it turned out to be just a silly little leak? You could have tightened up the bowl in your filter a little bit more, or tightened up a hose clamp and the leak went away and your pressure came back. What if that? This is all about the rapid elimination.
It's got a lot of reasons to have that there, Jerry. That's for certain, man. I can't tell you how many times that somebody told they couldn't get the pump to get pressurized and they hooked up to a garden hose, and all it was some debris in the tank blocking the intake, and that's all it was. And sometimes stupid stuff happens. Like, how did a rag get in there and get in and stop the water flow? Right?
Yeah. Funny story. A mobile detailer came into me one time. My pump's lost all pressure. What do I do? And I'm like, did you pressure feed it? Yeah, I pressure fed it. There's no leaks. It works great when I pressure feed it, but I hook that up to the tank and it doesn't do anything. And I'm going, is there a filter in the tank? Oh, well, yeah, but I only put purified water in. I never do. I only use spot-free water. And I said, do you have employees? He goes, yeah. And I said, do you want me to look in the tank, or you want to look for you or you want to do it yourself? Well, I'll go look. And we walked out to his tank together. We looked inside together. Guess what? One of his employees had been rinsing out rags in the tank, and all the lint was clogging the filter.
Yep.
Silliness.
Unbelievable. What if the glass filter cracks and air gets in there? There is no glass filter, is there?
Well, this is a big plastic bowl. Some people like the cool.
I hate that. I hate those.
Here's the thing.
I hate them.
If you've only got a 4 gallon a minute machine, okay, this has great big 3/4 inch line. You can tank feed it with a 1 inch feed line and split it up to 2 3/4 and dual feed a 4 gallon a minute pump for a long time and I have those kits, 3/4 inch lines, 1 inch line to the filter, and you have the clear bowl that you can see. Okay, but some of those same guys go, yeah.
Jerry, you know what I do? You know what I do with the filter on any type of surface cleaner? I eliminate it. I get rid of it.
You change the subject on me. We're going to talk about.
I know, but I just got to tell you, I just can't stand having those inline filters where they're not needed, right? Because you're supposed to clean the water before it comes into the tank, right?
How does
a rock get into the pump and come through and get into your nozzle? How does that happen? I never could figure that out. If you've got a filter at your water tank and you're supplying yourself clean water, why in the hell do you need a filter on your surface cleaner?
Because of the steel fittings on the outlet side of the fitting. Okay. The elbows and fittings that we put on the high pressure side, they need to be steel fittings, and eventually they do rust. Even the good quality, CAD plated or nickel.
I've never had anything in my tips.
I'm going to disagree with that, because the tips did wear out, didn't they? Oh yeah. So I guess the debris was small enough that it got through the tip.
Well,
So
what happens is we could talk about that. They don't change those tips enough, Jerry. You know that. Nobody changes those tips enough.
Right.
They should. You know what I do? I won't change the oil in the pump, but I will change my tips often, because if you can't get a good clean unless you have new tips, I'm sorry, you just can't do it. Maybe that's why I don't use the filter, because that used to frustrate me, those filters, because a lot of times when you started having problems with them, it's restrictive. I just couldn't stand it. I got rid of them. Ron Musgrave's tip of the day: get rid of the filter in the surface cleaner. Jerry says use it. I say it's no good. I say get rid of them.
I'm trying to teach a different school of thought. I'm trying to teach the guy that wants to go the fastest to be able to eliminate downtime the fastest. Okay. If you want a turbo nozzle to last a long time, you better have a filter on it, or you're going to wear that thing out in 3 months. I had a guy come in here just yesterday. No, it was this morning, actually. He uses turbo tips for cleaning dumpsters every day for waste management. And his boss scolded him for going through too many turbo nozzles. Then they found us, and I only sell them with a filter. And he comes back, and says, hey, by the way, your turbo nozzles last a whole year. I was getting in trouble for having to buy one every 3 months. They thought I was dropping them all the time, but now they're lasting a full year.
I was going to say he was probably throwing them. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking he was throwing them. People don't know that, Jerry. So let's finish that tip, because that's a tip. Why do you not drop a turbo tip? Because they're ceramic.
They have a ceramic face. So I'm going to drag you back to the surface cleaner, the thing right now. I'm going to drag you back there. Those nozzles are half as big as the nozzle you use on your wand if you've got 2 nozzles. And they're a third as big if you're using 3 nozzles. And they're a fourth as big if you're using 4 nozzles, okay? So a filter helps you to not have clogged nozzles. So you've got a choice. You either bring a bunch of extra tips and you plan on stopping in the middle of what you're doing. And aren't you trying to stop the zebra stripes from happening? Don't you?
What do you prefer? What do you prefer? Not getting off the pump situation, but what do you prefer on? Do you like 2-tip surface cleaner, 3-tip, 4-tip? What do you prefer?
Well, we need the spray bar to turn as fast as possible, because you're trying to go forward without zebra stripes. But we want to spread the water out a little bit. If you're going to go over 5 or so gallons a minute, you want to go to a 3 nozzle or a 4 nozzle spray bar on 8 or 10 gallon a minute, just so it's easier to suck up with the vacuum or surface cleaner. Or if you're trying not to damage the surface, you're just trying to do your production style rinse off, plus multiple nozzles allows you to go faster without zebra stripes. It's a work speed tool, not a detailing tool. That's what a surface cleaner is. It's a work speed tool, not a detailing tool. Okay.
Is this a real thing? And start your turbo tip pointed down because it's ceramic.
Yeah.
Does that matter?
Yes. Yes.
So you could destroy a turbo tip by pointing it up in the air and turning it on?
Yes. It's slant that moving part inside there falls back away from the face, and when you open the gun, it slams against ceramic faces and destroys it. It chips them.
Learn two things today.
Don't
start a turbo tip upside down, and don't use starting fluid in a motor, because you'll screw it up every time.
You got an old dog calling you an old dog right now, so there's that.
Man, learn 2 things. Never thought I'd never. One thing is that I'm doing this with Jerry about the tech stuff, and I'm learning a couple things, but this part of the business, he is just jazzed up about it. To me, it's hard for me, Jerry. I just want you to know that it's hard to talk tech stuff, because I'm not a tech guy. I'm just not a tech guy. I get people that call me all the time to try to fix their machine. I'm like, hey, calling the wrong guy. I'm liable to burn your machine up. I'm going to tell you to put starter fluid in it and blow the motor up. You know what I mean?
You're entertaining, but I could be giving more tech talk right now.
Well, we got to wrap it up, Jerry. We're just under 1 hour now. 15.
I
You
guess
got
we're going to have
15
to
seconds.
do more tech talks. So
well, we're going to
once
keep
a week.
going. Tech. This is the biggest show. Tech Talk on Tuesday, right? Only we're doing it on Wednesday. We're going to call it Tuesday Tech Talk on Wednesday. On Wednesdays, guys. Kind of a little parody kind of thing, you know.
We had a holiday on Monday, and you know that the first of the week is always the most difficult time in a service center because all you guys busting your stuff on the weekend that didn't have any spare parts end up in my shop on Monday.
He says he called me, but you know what? I knew it was wrong with his motor. Because anytime you put a motor on load and it dies, only half the motor's functioning. That's it. That's the problem.
Yeah, the easy way to find out is you put your finger on the spark plug to see which one's hot or which one's not. If it's not firing, it doesn't get hot.
That's a good tip, man. I didn't know that. Next time I blow a motor up, I'll try that. Yep. And he said, look at this. Even though I hate tech stuff, he says I was right. He had a blown motor, and it wasn't an old motor. But I try to tell people all the time, you can buy parts that are broken, right? You can buy brand new parts and they're broken, right, Jerry? I mean, that's just how it is. That's how it goes sometimes.
I've seen engines come out of a box with problems. Absolutely.
Jerry, are we going to do a show in San Diego? Because I'm dying to get to San Diego. Are we just going to do a show, man? I mean, are we going to do something? We haven't had anything in California in what? 5 years? 6 years? You gonna talk to the boss and see if she'll let you do a show?
We'll do, the boss.
She's the boss, Jerry. Get out. She's the boss. You got a boss. I know you do. She's wonderful. She's a wonderful person. But anytime we always get hooked up with another person, they're the boss. I mean, come on. You want me to bring the boss in right now? You want me to bring my boss in right now? She will tell you she will tell you she runs the show. Okay, Jerry?
She's probably watching this right now, and she can't wait for us to have an open house.
Cece,
can't wait.
Cece, are you out there? Jerry, come in here. Are you the boss? Is your opportunity to say you're the boss, dear? Come on. You're not going to do. Oh, she's not going to come in. She's not coming in. She won't do it.
Right.
She's scared to death of the camera. Now, man, they're great women. We both are very lucky men, but they are the boss, man. That's it. So when do you want to do it, Jerry? September, October, November? First week in December?
Well, we'll talk about that.
December is beautiful, man. December is a beautiful time. Beautiful time.
It's nicer in November typically, but let's see what the schedule holds. We'll talk about it. We might even talk about it next Tuesday.
We'll do it on next Tuesday then. Let's get it done. Hey, guys, I appreciate Jerry coming out, guys. Guys that asked a question, if you haven't got a shirt already, guys, look at this. This is a PWI Elite shirt. Look at that. Mobile Cleaning Institute, guys. Contractors first. It's right there, guys. You guys get these. It's a limited edition. I put the pressurewasher.net website up. You guys, if you guys want some of these quick fixes, these kits that Jerry has, I got to talk to him when I get off the phone about a 12-volt kit because I need a 12-volt. Kid wants to change some of his 120s over to 12-volt burners. Got the burners,
most reliable heaters in the world.
But need the kits right there. They are hot, Jerry. That's for sure. Those things are hot. They do run hot.
Yours can be reliable too.
You do have some tricks that make them run hotter that people don't know about, and that's the reason that you sell them.
I spend the money on the right parts, and I make sure they're connected correctly.
The Bulldog Pro Power Washer, definitely one of the best in the industry, guys. It is very, very easy. Even I can change a belt. I never have, but I could change the belt if I had to, if my life depended on it. We need to talk about that one other day about how easy they are to work on. Because I'm going to tell you something.
You can change the belt in 10 minutes.
I'll tell you something. What we ought to do is put you on a timer and let you change the belt on one of them. That's what I do.
I don't turn wrenches anymore. I delegate that. You know what? I'll bring Vicky. She can change the belts. That's how easy.
This video, he's given great technical tips. We'll be back next Tuesday, 4:35 p.m. Follow the show. We're going to actually broadcast on his page as well next time, or his YouTube channel, so you can find it there. So make sure you follow that. I'm going to put Jerry's channel link in because I did it in some of the other videos. So I'm going to toss it into this one, guys. Jerry, you got 1 minute. Say what you got to say. Don't forget, guys, get signed up for the free events, nationalcleaningexpo.com, and we'll have a date locked down for Jerry, hopefully by next week too. You got a minute, Jerry, and then we're out.
When you're going to plumb up a new system, take a look at my website and call me, and I'll save you a lot of time. You won't find half of these things very quickly, and you won't save any money spending a lot of time. You might as well just get it done right the first time. We can cut it to the right size or whatever. You can do the fancy version or the simple version. If you're, you know, a guy called me wanting a wet sandblasting attachment. Those are pieces of crap if they're not set up properly. And there's no way you're going to figure that out in hours of just trying it for yourself or going on some group and saying, hey, what do you guys think? No, you come to the guy that redesigned the wet sandblasting attachment or the sludge sucker. The sludge sucker doesn't work as good as it could. If you buy one from me, it's already set up. I've already spent the hours to re-engineer the silly little things that make the big difference. It's what I've done for 40 years almost. I make things better.
And I just put your website up there, Jerry. So if any of these guys want to check it out, they got the links in there. I'll make sure I get that up. I got it up on the past videos. I'll make sure I get it in the thing of this one. Appreciate you coming out. Appreciate you coming out, Jerry. We'll see you next Tuesday for TeCh Tuesday. See everybody out there. Ron Musk.